Hi warriors, Hanne here, and in today's video I'm going to be talking all about digestive distress, why you're getting it, the most common issues in eating disorder recovery, and how to overcome them. Stay tuned! Firstly, I want to say that previously I've already made a video on bloating in recovery and constipation and other digestive issues related to just refeeding. And if you haven't checked that out yet, I urge you to check it out now, because I think that's a very comprehensive video and there's lots of interesting concepts in there already that could be very useful. However, today I want to dive a little bit deeper into why you might be experiencing these issues, why it's perfectly normal, and how to concretely overcome them. Anyway, personally, I've dealt with a lot of digestive problems in my recovery. First off, constipation, then lots of bloating, cramping. I was constantly having stomach aches. And then after that seemed to more or less resolve when I started going to university. My stomach was completely messed up again. So I thought maybe it was to do with my breakfast. I was having oatmeal every morning with a lot of milk, and I thought, oh, maybe it's milk. But I experimented with some different milks and really that wasn't a problem. Recently, I also got an allergy test done, and I don't have any problems with lactose, with soy, with sesame, with wheat, with gluten, any of that. However, I do apparently have an allergy to hazelnuts, which I didn't know anything about. Anyway, by just sort of charting my symptoms and keeping a bit of a journal, I found out that apples don't always sit well with my stomach, and through process of elimination, I have stopped eating oats as well, also in granola, which is really, really sad because I really love this. But it's quite difficult to determine sensitivities, and for me, this is what I had to do. However, I don't think you should necessarily eliminate loads of stuff, especially at the start of your recovery, and I will tell you all why. Personally, I've had allergies since I was a kid. I remember one time eating an ice cream that had red food flavoring in it and practically dying that night. That's what it felt like to me. I was really itchy, my body was all red and sort of swollen, my face was swollen, my lips were 3 or 4 times the size. It was really creepy, and I had to go to the doctor, but only the next day because it was the middle of the night and we couldn't go anywhere. Since that point, I got some kind of topical cream, and whenever I put that on, I looked like a snowman, but it was a lifesaver. Anyway, if you haven't had allergies before, it's very unlikely that you develop such allergies, and regardless of what the media tells you, food intolerances too are very, very infrequent in the general population. So you're not likely to be intolerant, although it is possible, especially after an eating disorder. It's just more likely that you're going to experience IBS type symptoms, not because inherent intolerances, but because your body simply is not used to eating food and it needs to adapt to that. At this time, it might be that most or all food causes you problems, and it's impossible to avoid all your triggers. In fact, it's not possible to do recovery while avoiding all triggers, because you'd be eating nothing yet again. So why is it that your body acts so aversely to having food in its system? Well, firstly, your intestines have slowed down their movement so that food doesn't leave the digestive tract as quickly, so that maximal nutrients can be absorbed from the food. And this is a survival mechanism that your body sort of carries out automatically. However, now that you start to eat more food, the intestinal movement is still really slow, causing constipation, cramping, bloating, and just general discomfort, because it takes a while for your body to adapt and to speed up the intestinal movement again. The only way to deal with this really is to keep eating through the discomfort, because if you start to restrict again, you keep your body stuck in this state. Another reason you might be experiencing problems is because the number of digestive enzymes in your body has significantly reduced, because you haven't really been eating a variety of food or sufficient amounts of food. and keeping these enzymes high is not really your body's priority, plus it's just not really necessary if there's not that much nutrition going through your body on a regular basis. During recovery and refeeding, this may cause some organs to malfunction, digestion to slow, and food to occasionally pass through undigested, which means it will probably ferment later on in the large intestine, and this can cause bloating and gas. Again, reintroducing more food on a regular basis is the only way around this. As with the enzymes, the hydrochloric acid concentration in your stomach has been significantly reduced. So when you increase your intake, again, your stomach doesn't at first produce the required amounts of hydrochloric acid to break down the food. This obviously has a whole range of digestive problems that it carries with it. Thyroid functioning is also suppressed, reducing overall energy expenditure, which is your body's priority when it is in starvation mode. Now that you're eating more again, it takes a while for the thyroid function to get back to its optimal level, and obviously your thyroid is responsible for your metabolism, which at first will be suppressed. However, if you feed yourself sufficiently, and if you try to reach minimum guidelines as fast as you can, you will be able to overcome bloating and constipation and all these other digestive problems as fast as possible. In addition to this reversible damage, other hormones and organs are also suppressed, and this is obviously also reversible, but it does cause some initial issues with your digestion and absorption. For example, the inner surface of your intestines and your stomach may be damaged from lack of adequate protein, and as a result, your body metabolizes the muscle of your intestines to meet its protein needs. Obviously, this causes initial distress when you start to eat more again, and your stomach, in fact, shrinks because it gets used to these smaller portions, and it simply needs to stretch out again. And I realize that sounds really scary, but it's a normal process. It's just something that takes a little bit of time, and it causes your initial hunger fullness cues to be a little bit messed up, which is why in a previous video I recommended meal plans in the initial stages of recovery. In addition to these physical problems and suppression of hormones and enzymes, etc., you also experience a certain degree of psychological distress in recovery. So not only is the increased food intake causing digestive issues, it's also causing mental struggles and a lot of mental stress. And stress in turn has been linked reliably to IBS-type symptoms. In addition, with a hyper-awareness of your body, this can be quite triggering because it's going to cause bloat, it's going to cause cramping, and you're going to be extra aware of it, which is going to cause even more stress and perpetuate this cycle. And this is problematic, so the main thing to focus on, I think, is to keep eating and to reduce stress. Stress is the biggest and the most predictable trigger to digestive troubles, so try to avoid stress. This also means not focusing too much on which foods you think you should eat or shouldn't eat to fix your digestive troubles, because focusing on it too much can cause unnecessary additional stress that's only going to make the problem worse. So avoid stress, make sure to meditate, have some me time, take a bath, wear comfortable clothes, and stop weighing yourself every day. Stop body checking, stop engaging in the behaviors that are only going to stress you out more. And again, do not try to avoid certain foods. Elimination diets are the last thing you want to engage in. So unless you were diagnosed with gastrointestinal illnesses before your eating disorder, do not fall into this trap. And let me just put a really quick disclaimer here. There is such a thing as secondary lactose intolerance. So because the digestive system has been put through excessive stress during the eating disorder, it may temporarily stop producing lactase, the protein needed to break down lactose. And for this reason, it might be helpful to avoid some dairy products, replace them with soy products or with oat milk or or other non-dairy alternatives. But this is just temporary, because if you are not lactose intolerant pre-eating disorder, you will not be lactose intolerant afterwards. Also, if you do find yourself having to avoid dairy products, do not use this as an excuse to just limit your intake, because obviously there's soy-based ice creams, there's coconut-based cheeses. There's no need to avoid facing your fear foods. So, now that we know all the reasons for digestive distress, let's get around to some of the fixes. First, eat diversely, because your gut flora needs it. 2, eat sufficiently, because your intestines and the intestinal movement needs it. And 3, eat regularly, for pretty much every other ailment. Do not fall into the trap of avoidance and restriction. First and foremost, starvation and malnutrition need to be reversed. So eat, eat, eat. If you experience uncomfortable symptoms and subsequently try to restrict your food to reduce these symptoms, it's only going to perpetuate them. It's only going to drag them out for longer, and you won't get to the bottom of the symptoms. You will not overcome them, but merely prolong them. You need to face them. You'll have to eat even when not hungry. You'll have to eat even when you're constipated or bloated or just feeling less than optimal. You will have to stop compensating and restricting and using laxatives. And I know that following this advice will make you feel uncomfortable sometimes, but it's definitely worth it in the end. One quick note on laxatives as well is most laxatives on the markets, even the ones that are more natural, are stimulant in nature, which means they stimulate the intestines to contract and move stool along more quickly. But although you may think this can be helpful, it really isn't, because over time, using these laxatives will make the intestines themselves lazy and reliant on the medication, and then it will just be much more difficult to get off them. So if you are using them currently, I suggest you stop them, preferably with some medical help. And if you were considering using them, just please don't. So stick to your meal plan, eat sufficiently, gain weight, and make your body trust you again. Eat sufficiently and regularly. Especially regularly is something I want to just zone in on really quickly, because it signals to your body that nourishment is provided regularly. And this alleviates constipation style issues and also helps re-regulate your hunger cues, both of which are really important. It's also easier for you to digest smaller, more frequent meals, so spaced 2 or 3 hours apart, as opposed to having just 3 square meals in a day, because it's just less taxing on your digestion. It also helps stabilize blood sugar levels, which stabilizes mood and appetite. It may prevent food binges later in the day and reduce stress and decision anxiety. And I think all of these factors are probably equally important. So if you're thinking about skipping a meal or skipping a snack, don't let the eating disorder win. I feel like I've been rambling about food for a very long time, but as I said, reducing stress is really important, and also making sure you drink sufficiently is really important, because fluids are essential to move things along, and I have found in my recovery that especially, well, just water, but also peppermint tea and ginger tea are really helpful, because they help soothe the stomach and they help with bloating and cramping and all these uncomfortable issues. Fizzy drinks, caffeinated drinks, and alcohol may, on the other hand, not be as helpful. Nor are sugar-free items, foods, or drinks, because sorbitol and fructose, which are the natural sugars that occur in these products, are known to contribute to belly bloating, which can be uncomfortable and also quite triggering. Just a few last notes on food. I said to eat a variety, and that includes also every single food group. Do not restrict any carbs or any fats or any proteins, because they're all needed. For example, for fats, they help move the food along, and sources like avocado, for example, are great because they're not only nutrient dense and contain many vitamins such as B vitamins, which help your body get energy from the food you eat. They're also calorically dense, which your body just really, really needs, so do not shy away from them. Also, be sure to eat fermented foods. These help rebuild beneficial bacteria and bacterial colonies in the gut that are needed to just replenish the enzymes that you've been starving for so long. For this, you can try yogurt, kimchi, tempeh, or a whole variety of other foods. In addition to fermented foods, fiber-rich foods are really important because they help pass food through the digestive tract. So maybe consider adding soluble fibers such as oatmeal, but also have whole grain pastas or rice, breads. Certain breakfast cereals are quite good as well. And obviously fruits and vegetables have a lot of fiber too. However, do not overload on fiber. Don't start taking fiber supplements, then eating loads of raw fruits and veggies and really freaking the body the hell out. Because although we do need fiber, there is such a thing as too much, and raw fruits and vegetables can initially be quite difficult for your body to digest, especially if these vegetables are cruciferous vegetables such as Brussels sprouts or broccoli. They may cause a lot of gas and bloating. Introduce them gradually, and the same is true for legumes and beans. Introduce them gradually. In terms of legumes and beans, it can also be helpful to rinse them loads to get rid of the non-digestible elements and prevent breakdown in the large intestine. In terms of fruit, it might be helpful to eat riper fruits as opposed to fruit that's not quite as ripe, just because it's easier to digest. Vegetables, cook them rather than eat them raw, and again, this will help with breaking them down later. Do not shy away from processed foods either, because they tend to be easier to digest than food in its whole form. And I think it's just a really good exercise to face your fear of foods, as I always say. Anyway, my last and final tip, which I think is the most important one, is to be kind to yourself. Wear comfortable clothes, have a massage, have a bath, tell yourself some positive things every day, have a gratitude journal, and do not beat yourself up over a misstep or over discomfort or over the struggles that you simply have to go through in recovery. Be kind to yourself, avoid stress, and know that you can get through this process. Discomfort is temporary, but once you've reached recovery, girl, you've made it, and your life is going to be amazing. I promise you it will be. I promise you, you can get there. Editing Hanne just wants to add one thing, and that is that, well, obviously, as I said, regularity is really important because your body comes to expect meals and to produce the hormones before you even have the meal in order to then digest the meal. But if you're hungry in between, that's fine too, eat. But even if you're not hungry, stick to your regular routine and do not stress about the precise foods. This whole list of tips that I've given you has centered around food, and that is for specific cases where you might have an allergy or you're just starting the refeeding process. After this initial period, eat everything. Because once you start to eat everything, yes, you might experience some discomfort, but this is new enzymes that you're creating in your stomach, a new biodiversity that you're creating in your stomach. And if you avoid foods or eliminate certain foods or food groups, then these enzymes will die out again. And once you eat the food, your body's not going to know how to deal with it. So honestly, eat a variety and relax. If you're really stressed before a meal, have a breather, sit down, do a 5-minute meditation, and then eat. Nevertheless, if the only option you have is eating on the go or while you're really busy, then do that, because honestly, eating is still better than not eating at all. And yeah, regularity and relaxation are probably the two biggest tips that I can give you. So yeah, I guess I'll take you with me on a full day of eating easy to digest, bloat reducing, constipation reducing, wonderful food. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something new and have got some new tools to work with, some new things to try in order to improve your digestion. I love you all loads, and leave your comments below. I will see you again soon.